Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and today I wanted to talk about the this idea about who we really are in astrology. Often it gets asked to whether we're more our sun sign or moon sign or ascendant, and I just want to, you know, talk about this subject and bring up some associations to maybe get a better idea of the differences between them and what really we are, if we are any of them. Um, you know, so the way I like to think about it is this: when we get out of bed, we get out of bed with the sun. Generally speaking, I mean, people have different sleeping habits, but in generally around the world, when the sun rises, people rise. We get out of bed and we start our day. We tend to go to work. We get dressed. We go to work. We become worldly. So there's a lot of associations with the sun that I think shed some light on this subject of what what does the sun really represent for us. And then by doing this, we can get a better idea of how, what aspects it represents in our lives for who we are. So naturally, we rise, we wake, we become awake, we separate, we separate from our home, from our bed, from our husband or wife, from our kids. We go out into the world, we go to work, um, we become business oriented, we businesses open for business. Um, we become physically active. Some people are laborers, or some people like to go to the gym. Daytime is much more um, common for that type of thing. We consume meals, nourishment, healthy food for our physical vitality. So physical vitality. We become productive. We work towards our goals. It's a very official time, daytime. Things happen during business hours, right? We have this idea of business hours. That's during the daytimes. And we just become very worldly. It's so all of these things kind of represent our sun sign, how we move through the world according to our sun sign. A lot of people will say we are a sun sign, and it's just one aspect, I think, and we'll see it better when we compare and contrast the others. Um, but one thing we can say is that our sun is primarily how we operate in the world, in relation to the world, because the sun shines on the whole world. It's not really personal. It's a very worldly part of our personality. Um, Next is the moon. So some associations with the moon are obviously nighttime and darkness, uh, sex, sleep, parties, drinking, drugs, crime, romance, dates, being social, relaxing, dreaming, fantasizing, being creative, music, like nightclubs and that sort of thing. That's all very common at night. Um, what was that 80s cheesy 80s hair band song, Up All Night, Sleep All Day? That sort of thing. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Getting dressed up, not necessarily like we would during the day for business, but to be really sort of attractive and glamorous. Hidden things and secret things are common at night. If we want to hide something, it's much better to do it at night than during the day when the sun's out. Emotions naturally are more active at nighttime. Things like spirits and spooky things and fearful things, that nighttime is the time where we're more likely to be, are you afraid of the dark type stuff like that. underworld and ghosts and goblins and um, nostalgia and the past comes up at night because of the expansiveness of space. You know, if we go out into space, it's it's all nighttime, and so there's an otherworldliness to it, and somehow the past is associated. I mean, if we think in terms of like you know, Akashic records and spirituality and karma, that's all related to the planets and stars. So astrology and our sort of collective unconscious and everything that's comes from the past is related to nighttime. So the moon relates to all those things. Our moon sign indicates all those type of activities, and it's different from the daytime, different from the sun. You know, when the sun's out, it tends to burn all the things that are related to night. It hides the night sky. We don't see the stars. We don't see the planets when the sun's out. All we see is the sun, and it creates a sense of worldliness. It's a very different feeling when the sun's out. When the sun's out, we tend to feel insulated in our little world. We feel like this earth is basically the universe. So the sun has it's like an all-encompassing thing. When the sun's out, there's nothing else. It hides everything. The sun conceals everything. The moon doesn't. The nighttime doesn't. The nighttime opens everything up. It's kind of scary at night if we, you know, if we can tap into that, because we're wide open, right? And so the moon has this correlation of like that, of being wide open, of being vulnerable. You know, we're more likely to think about things like aliens at nighttime, or otherworldly stuff, other galaxies and planets and solar systems and space, because we feel like we're, you know, on a, you know, a rock floating in space at night, because that's essentially what we are when we don't have the sun blinding us to everything. That's what the sun does. It blinds us to everything else but itself. We see all everything else. So it's kind of like it's this polarity between the sun and everything else. You know, I mean, the moon is kind of symbolic of meaning everything else. You know, everything else in the universe is sort of encapsulated by the moon. So in many ways, I mean, the moon represents a huge part of our personality, of our who we are, because it's the everything else is represented by the moon, the sun, and then everything that's not the sun is what is connected to the moon, right? Because we get all the stars, we get the whole expansive universe with the moon, right? That's when we can see the whole universe, the galaxies and everything in space, floating out in space, being completely vulnerable to everything, right? And that's really, really interesting, that dichotomy. So if you want to understand your moon sign versus your sun sign, think of those two things. During the day, you can say like, my daytime influence is this, whatever sign and house it is. My nighttime influence is this, whatever sign and house it is, right? And then we can get a better idea. Neither one of those really says I am this or I am that, because we have different parts of ourselves. You know, if we're asking the question, who am I? We're not going to get a clear answer, not yet anyway, between whether we're more our moon or more our sun. But let's look at the ascendant, and I just want to share my screen for this. I'm going to pull up, oops, sorry. I'm going to pull up my chart, and just to show you, to give you an idea of what I mean, what the ascendant really is. So there's some people, all right, some people say that the Like where's the Earth? Where's the Earth in all this? Some people say, well, it's in the center of the chart. The center of the chart is the Earth. Other people say, well, it's exactly opposite. The sun is the Earth. So mine would be 15 Sagittarius, because my sun is 15 Gemini. Both of those things are an interesting idea, but I want to pose a third option, that the house system represents the Earth. Because why? Because this is the eastern horizon. This is where the sun rises. This is where the planets rise when we were born, and this is where they set. So this is the plane of the Earth right here. So actually the houses from that perspective, they represent the Earth, right? So what we're talking about is the sun and the moon and the Earth when we're talking about the big three. Sun, moon, and ascendant. Ascendant is the Earth. Ascendant is the eastern horizon where everything rises. What's interesting about this, if the sun is rising here, let's just pretend that the sun is just below the horizon in the first house. When it rises up, that's waking up. That's when we're waking up. So what's here? Well, here is below, in the first house, below the horizon is our bed, essentially our sleep, when we're sleeping. So if you want to know where your bed is in astrology, in your chart, it's in your first house. It's below the horizon, because when the sun rises, it rises like this. This is the daily motion, right? It's rising in the east. And one correlation with the 12th house, not the only one, but is that when we're asleep, our dream world can be seen in the 12th house, right? Because here we are sleeping, but we're sort of disembodied in the dream world, and so we're out here dreaming in the 12th house. We're here asleep, dreaming in the 12th house. And then the second association is that when we wake up, as the sun rises, because sun rising is equivalent to waking up in the morning, we are groggy in the morning. We're tired and we're asleep and we can't really think, and we're just like out of it. And what do we need? Well, we need coffee, we need liquid, we need juice, we need water, we need, we shower, we wash our face. So all the water things is how we wake up. And this is essentially a water house, the 12th house, right? So water is how we wake up. Then we rise. After that, we're awake. After the 12th house, we're awake, and we move into the 11th house, the 10th house, and we're at work here. We're doing our daily activities. And then we finish our daily activities around here, and we get to the descendant. And this is our setting. This is where the sun sets, and this is where we return home into our home. So essentially, we're out in the world on the upper half, and we're at home on the lower half, right? That's why career is seen at the top and home is seen here. And here's where we join our family. We join our loved ones, our husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, become romantic and, play with the kids and all that, and go to sleep. And then we restart the cycle. But this is the plane of the Earth. And so it's interesting. I mean, if we could put the sun up here, right, and the moon down here to represent the sides of, how the sun and the moon operate. I mean, obviously the sun will be in different positions and so will the moon, but generally speaking, this is obviously the night half, and here's the day half, and in between is the self. And the self that's why it's called the self, the first house, because this is the orientation for waking up and rising in the morning. And here's others. Here's where we rejoin. Here's the house of, the partnership, marriage, because here's where we reconnect with our marriage, our husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, family, loved ones, etc. Or even if it's just a friend, this is where we return to them. So, this idea that the ascendant is just a mask, I've talked about this before, and I really don't like that. I think it's It's just a superficial idea, and a lot of other astrologers say the same thing. It's inaccurate. It's not so, because the house system is a deeply personal part of who and what we are, and the ascendant represents the houses. It's a part of the house system. You know, it's different than the planets and signs. The planets, it's two halves. It's, you know, 50% planets and signs and 50% houses. And so the ascendant is part of the house system, and it represents the self in a very big way, because, you know, however our sun sign is represented in the upper half, and however our moon sign is represented in the lower half. But when we are more in our moon, we're less in our sun. And when we're more in our sun, we are less in our moon. So how can we say either of those things is really who we are? We bring our ascendant through all of that, right? We're always our ascendant. That's always our self-orientation. And we add on top of that the sun, or we add on top of that the moon. So, I mean, we could say we are our ascendant, or the third option, the fourth option, we could say we're the whole chart, you know, and a lot of people say that, and that, yeah, of course, because we're, you know, we're our Mars, our Saturn, our Pluto, our Uranus, North Node, all the planets and points. We are all of that. We are all the houses. We are the whole chart. We are everything. Yeah, that's all true. However, one of the reasons, I'm going to stop sharing. One of the reasons this question keeps coming up is because it's an extremely important question. Who am I? Who am I really? My sun, my moon, my ascendant, the whole chart. Because no matter what we answer, it's not going to be satisfying, because we'll know deep inside ourselves that none of that's true. We are not defined by our astrology charts at all. So we're, you know, even if we say we are the whole chart, that doesn't quite do it. We know that, like intuitively, we know that, because if somebody just says that, you're not satisfied, you're going to keep saying, well, who am I? I don't, you know, somebody else says I'm my sun. Somebody else says I'm my ascendant. Somebody else says I'm my Pluto, you know, I'm my North Node, my South Node, whatever. None of that's satisfying. And if you take it further into spirituality and religion, not so much religion, even though it falls under that category, but like in Advaita Vedanta or Zen, who am I is a pivotal, central question to understanding that whole paradigm. And, you know, that's not way out in left field. It's extremely relevant, because, I mean, we are trying to understand ourselves through astrology. And if we want to take it deeper into the truth, I mean, if we're more interested in the truth than we are in just sort of, you know, having a hobby of astrology, then we just want to find out. If we're more interested in the truth, then we have to keep going, diving deeper into this question: who am I? And the question itself can lead to a discovery of something much deeper and more profound, which I would encourage everyone to find out and to ask, who am I? Not to come up with some final answer that you can, you know, write on the internet and brag about to all your friends. I figured out who I am. I figured out who we are, or something. Nothing like that, because that never happens. It never will happen, because it's not something that can be fully put into words. We can talk about it, we can talk around it, we can say stuff about it, but there is no final answer to that question. The question itself is going to burn through our ego in that quest. And that's the whole point of asking it. It's sort of like, the analogy is prodding the fire with a stick. The stick gets burned up as you prod the fire. The question gets burned up as you ask, as you seek to find out who you really are, right? So it's a pivotal question. It's an endless question, and it's one question that doesn't have an answer. So when we're asking in astrology these things about who we are we more our sun, are we more our moon, or are we more our ascendant? I just want to point out that there is no answer to that question, and we're never going to get an answer. It's a great question. I don't mean to say that nobody should ask it, but nobody should expect some final answer from it. You know, some people will say, well, we're definitely more our sun. Others will say, well, we're definitely more our ascendant. Others will say, well, I feel like we're our moon. And others will say, well, we're the whole chart. And they're all correct. I mean, there's no wrong answer to that. They represent different parts of ourselves. And keep asking that question, because it is such a vital question. And if my main purpose for using astrology is to understand myself more. So asking who I am within astrology and without astrology is just a pivotal, it's essential, it's such an important question, and such an important quest to seek out and find out who we are really. I encourage everyone to seek out that answer and that question, that answer that has no answer, that question that has no answer. It will lead you to some profound discoveries if you search or seek in earnest, in full sincerity. It will lead you to great discoveries, as it has for myself. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.